Let's say I'm not like saying it should be coaches should be handing this stuff out, but in the NFL with all
I'm with you.
Just a Tuesday night, I played a big game against the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I don't see that's a reason to suspend kids for a ball game. I think that's pretty stupid at this point.
Let me address something that I think you and I both have passion for. You're directly connected. USC yesterday had a disaster of a recruiting day, 12th in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
This is a massive brand with 6 national titles, 7 Heismans. You have one. Most players ever drafted into the NFL to this day, not Alabama or Clemson, 35-plus conference championships. It's a very apathetic coaching staff. It's disorganized in terms of recruiting. I've been saying this for years. I was with Clay Helton when they hired him. He's a grown-up and a good man. I think time has come. As a former Trojan, it's virtually impossible. This would be like Alabama being 16th.
Exactly.
I mean, even when Alabama's down, they can recruit.
Exactly. And that's the same thing for USC. Even when they're down, they can still recruit. And so to see this happen, to see USC be last in the Pac-12 and recruiting, like what is Oregon State selling that USC isn't, you know what I mean, to get these kids to stay in California?
People chose Corvallis over.
That's crazy.
Here's the other thing, is that you cannot fool kids.
Yeah.
Top 25 high school kids in California, none chose USC.
That speaks volumes.
By the way, 20 of them want to play for USC.
Right. Yes.
They didn't grow up saying, I want to go out in South Carolina. I guarantee you none had been to the state.
Yeah.
I mean, when you grew up.
Yeah, but you know what you said is so true. Most of these kids grew up wanting to go to USC. I can't remember which story it was about a kid who said that same exact thing. He said, I grew up a USC fan. I wanted to go there, but at this point in time where I'm at, I just don't see that happening because of X, Y, and Z. And that's the issue that's going to really, at the end of the day, it's going to be hard for USC to compete in the Pac-12 because if you're not getting the top recruits, it's hard to compete.
Let me tip the cap to high school football players in California. These young 17 and 18-year-old kids, I'm going to credit all these kids in California. They look at USC. The stadium's not full. They don't develop their players like Alabama, Clemson, Oregon, Oklahoma. The kids, you can sell them all you want. Kids are smarter than they've ever been. There's more transparency. And the California kids said, if I go play with Saban or Dabo, I'll get developed into a pro player. Because they all want to play in the pros.
And it never used to be like that. When Coach Orgeron and Pete Carroll and all these other coaches, Urban Meyer talked about it. He said when those coaches were here, when USC was at its height, or even within the last 5-10 years, coaches knew not to go to L.A., not to come to Southern California because USC was going to recruit all of them.
It would be a waste of your time.
It'd be a waste of your time. And so Urban said that he never even thought to come down to Southern California because of that reason. All the coaches knew that. That's the one area that USC controlled. And now that's not happening. I go back to Kayvon Thibodeau, who was the #1 recruit in the nation, right in our backyard, right down the freeway, goes to Oregon. And that speaks volumes, and that tells you everything that you need to know. Like you said, you can't fool these kids. They see what they see. They know what they know. They want to be developed to go to the next level. It's not just about this is not the last stop. College football is not the last stop.
No.
College football is supposed to be the place where you get developed to elevate your game.
Where I learned to be a broadcaster, where you learn to be a professional athlete.
Exactly.
So tip of the cap. The kids are saying, we're not stupid.
Yeah.
We're not dumb. We see what's happening. So credit to the young kids, the transparency. Okay, let's talk some NFL football. I've said this before. Odell Beckham's the first NBA player I ever saw in the NFL. Got a shoe deal. NBA guys tend to be global because basketball is more a global game. Football is a more domestic game. I honestly think Odell Beckham's not happy. I think he's been very smart to say all the right things.
Yeah, he's supposed to.
We saw what happened to AB. He said crazy stuff, and most of the league backed off.
Yep.
OBJ is like, okay, I'm going to go to the microphone.
He was smart. He got me matured.
No, totally matured. But would you have had the guts to demand a trade? Do you believe he should do it? If you were Odell, would you demand a trade?
I think he has the most power in this situation, probably out of a lot of when you match him up against other athletes. I think he has the ability to kind of work out a trade in his favor and really probably dictate where he even wants to go. I think he has that ability, and it just depends on whether he wants to use it or not. What I have had, what I have been able to demand a trade to a team, when I was in New Orleans, my last year, was going into my 6th year of my contract. Back then, they did 6-year contracts for running backs. Now they don't have that anymore. The Saints wanted me to take a pay cut, and I said, you know what, I don't want to take a pay cut if the carries and the opportunities aren't matching up. Because my last year in the league, my last year in New Orleans, I wasn't getting the amount of touches and carries that I would like to, and I knew that I still had a lot to offer to the game. And so we said to Sean Payton and to the coaches I wanted to get traded. So we basically demanded a trade. Obviously, we worked together with Sean Payton. He asked me which teams I wanted to go to.
Oh, that's cool.
And I went out and I said the only team at that point that needed a back was Miami Dolphins, or it was Tampa Bay. I didn't want to stay in the same division and have to see the Saints twice a year, so I went to Miami.
By the way, you went to Sean Payton. What was his initial reaction?
They knew. It was. I think the writing was kind of on the wall.
All right.
They understood. They knew that I wanted to be an every down back, and the way that Sean operates in his offenses, he uses 2-3 running backs. At that time, we were using 3 running backs, and so I knew I wanted to be an every down back. I knew I could be, and I went to Miami and I did that. I played really well for 2 years as an every down back, and then one more year the next year in Detroit as well.
I want to move to New Orleans and Drew Brees.
Yep.
Monday he breaks the all-time touchdown record. His trip through the NFL has been bumpy. Didn't get drafted in the first round. Had to go to Purdue. Didn't get to go to Texas, where he was an all-time great high school quarterback. Goes to the NFL, gets hurt. Chargers say no thanks. Wants to play in Miami with Nick Saban. The doctors say no thanks. Goes to New Orleans with Sean Payton. There's Katrina. It has been, even in New Orleans, there's been bumps.
Yeah.
But here he is, the all-time leader in touchdowns. When you got to New Orleans, you were at the game. We'll talk about that in a second. Tell me when you first knew. You'd heard about Drew Brees. Yeah. We were aware of Drew.
I'm from San Diego, so I watched them as well.
Okay. When was the first just wow? Because at USC, you'd played with great quarterbacks.
Yeah. I think at some point in time, at his time with the Chargers, I don't remember which year it was, obviously growing up in San Diego, growing up a Chargers fan, as a young kid growing up in San Diego, there was 2 guys you wanted to be like growing up. It was either Junior Seau or it was Tony Gwynn. And those are the 2 guys that, I idolized growing up. And so I was, I'm a Charger fan at heart. Even to this day, it still pains me to know that they left San Diego. And so watching Drew throughout his career, obviously I was very impressed. His work ethic, his dedication. We saw some of that unfold in San Diego. But then when he got to New Orleans is where he really started to elevate himself and the guys around him. And thankfully, I had guys like him in front of me to watch and learn and see just how they did it. Guys like him, Drew Brees, Deuce McAllister, Joe Horn, Will Smith. Those are guys that I had in front of me who were pros on and off the field, who were dedicated to their craft week in and week out. And this video right here, I was at the facility, and we had finished. They had finished the walkthrough. Coach had introduced the Super Bowl team, and everybody went into the weight room. So this is kind of from the weight room looking at Drew's on the opposite side of the field in the indoor facility. And I was finishing up talking to our strength coach, and I turned around and I just saw him out there doing, what he always does. And so this was something that we saw all the time. So this is normal for us to see Drew doing this. The year we won the Super Bowl, there would have been 10 more guys out there with him, going through the motions. Jonathan Vilma, Fujita, a lot of the linebackers would be out there tackling, the dummies, the machines, and going through stuff. The receivers would be out there. And to me, that's why we were great, because we made practice harder than the game, and we elevated each other as well. And so seeing Drew do this, when I was actually about to walk out, and I saw him out there, and I was like, no, that's it. Like that's his greatness. That's what makes him great. So you
grabbed your phone?
So I just grabbed my phone and I just started doing a little video and kind of narrated a little bit, because
what is he doing there?
He's just going through the motions. He's going through the mental reps for the game. And there's so much for our game and sports in general, where I truly believe that mental reps are just as important as live game reps as well. And you see here, he doesn't even have a football in his hand.
He doesn't.
That's the thing I was impressed by. I was like, where's the ball at? Like, he doesn't even have a football in his hand, and he's out there. He's going through the motions. You can see he's playing the game in his mind. And to me, that was the coolest part to see, because it really speaks volumes to why he's great. And really, all the greatest athletes do this, right? All the greatest athletes find ways to outwork their opponent when the camera's off.
Yeah, Kobe's legendary for that at practice.
And honestly, when I was at USC, that's what I tried to do as well. I tried to do go the extra mile, even at the NFL level. Obviously, I got injured and dealt with that aspect as well, but those are the things that make players great. And when I saw that, it hit me right away, and it spoke volumes to me.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.